this. So what coach on Texas deserves the most blame? So, guys, I wrote a couple names down because I didn't really pay attention to the portal that much. I saw a couple guys jump in from the offensive line group. Obviously, I knew everyone else, but there was a couple that I remembered. I'm like, why didn't Texas go after? So I looked them up now. Pat Coogan is one. Pat Coogan is a guy that was on the national championship team of Notre Dame and, played a little bit of guard, a little bit of center. This guy's got a 79 Pro Football Focus grade for Indiana. You don't think we could use that? That means you're 65 is average for Pro Football Focus. So that's like a good football player we're talking about. Like he would be probably the best lineman we have at Texas right now. And when he jumped in, I said, why are we not getting him? Emmanuel Pregnon, transferred to Oregon, had an 87.5 Pro Football Focus grade versus Penn State. And we know what their defensive linemen are like. So there were guys there, and we actually had Emmanuel Pregnon on campus, and we chose not to go after him. I just don't understand how you don't bring one of them in. Because then if you bring one and he's like, oh, this guy's really good, then at least that solidifies that. Because right now the left guard and center are the two weakest spots by far on the offensive line, in my opinion. So it has not been good. So I agree with you, Gerald. I blame Kyle Flood the most, but I also have to, put blame at Steve Sarkisian because I'm sure he had the final say on all of this. And he was like, you know what? I'll just ride with my guy. I trust what he trusts. And it's failed completely. And it's one of those things, it's really hard to hide an offensive line, a bad offensive line. There's some things we can do, and we'll talk about that later. But it makes it a lot more difficult, especially with what Sark wants to do offensively.
Yeah, and I think about there's a guy who is working on his probably third All-ACC award right now that used to wear burnt orange. Logan Parr is the best pass-blocking offensive guard in the country, right? And that's a guy that Texas ran off for younger guys, right? He's got, I think it was first team his first year, third team last year because of injuries, and he's the top-rated pass-blocking blocker at left guard in the country, right? So, like, that just makes it even more apparent that, like, there's something off in the water when it comes to offensive line recruiting and offensive line management, because if you run off a guy like that for other players, like it's interesting to me to see why you did not choose to pay that guy, why you did. And again, now we're sitting here, Texas is starting a freshman left tackle at left guard because it's just so stinking bad. Like having to play Nick Brooks in this game in an emergency capacity should be a black eye for Kyle Flood. Like he should not be able to show his face at home because of that. Like that is just inexcusable. Like Texas should not be in that situation where you have to play a guy like Nick Brooks who's a freshman, right? He's a freshman. He's not even just a freshman, he's a developmental freshman. That's like playing out of position. So it's just wild to me that that's the situation that Texas is in. And I think you're right on Sark. Like Sark, obviously, everything rises and falls with the leadership, right? When the CEO is the one that gets the blame or should get the blame in a lot of these situations. So Steve Sarkisian, being the offensive guy he is, needs to set that up. I also want to point out, I said this on Saturday after the game, Jeff Banks is another guy who I think has not the most blame, but he's somebody that needs to be in the conversation here. I think Jeff Banks has not lived up to what I expected him to be as far as special teams and tight ends. And in the era of NIL and the current situation that recruiting is in, like, do you need a recruiter like Jeff Banks hidden in those positions, right? Where you used to kind of hide your elite recruiters at running back coach, at special teams coordinator, or tight ends, right? That's where you used to kind of stash your guy. And Jeff Banks turned himself into a highly sought after, special teams coordinator. But there were a couple of spots on Saturday where Jack Bomeister punted a dime that really would have created momentum for the defense. That twice Texas could have pinned the Florida offense at the 1 yard line, and they were unable to down the ball, right? Ryan Niblett watched the ball bounce in front of his face, go into the end zone and turn into a touchback, right? Those are the things, those like little inches, those margins in the game that are things that you have to pay attention to. So like I'm frustrated with that unit as well. Plus the tight ends, like where are the Jack Endries has been a non-factor in most games. Jordan Washington has been a non-factor all year. The tight end room is a blank slate at best and a detriment at worst.
No, 100%. And that's the thing, too. Like, thinking about Jeff Banks, I brought up Jack Bowmeister, what she's doing his job, was brought in from Utah. Like, no offense to Jeff Banks, he's done probably very little, having to do very little coaching with him, because the guy was an all-American Big 12 guy at Utah. Like, he's a really good punter, so I doubt he's had to do much work. Ryan Sanborn, same thing, really good punter at Stanford that we brought in. So how much work did he have to do with him? Bert Auburn was terrible, and he didn't fix anything about him. We knew when it was on the outer hash, he was going to miss every kick. So why don't you put it on the inner hash and help him out a little bit? I don't understand. So yeah, he's definitely on the hot seat for me, because again, Jadavian Sanders was here before he got here. Gunnar Helm was here before he got here. Did he obviously help those guys out? I'm sure he has. But unless one of these guys turns out like Nick Townsend, if he doesn't turn out to be a complete stud, Jeff Banks has to go from him. He's getting paid way too much money for him to be giving the return that he is. Kyle Flood, I completely agree, but the buck has to start with Steve Sarkisian. He 100% signs off on everything. And another thing we didn't talk about in the Florida recap, but also is a big thing that I saw, Sark obviously wants the deep ball to be a factor. I completely understand that. But with the offensive line you have, you cannot force the ball down the field, because you don't have 4 to 5 seconds, and you don't have the time for these long developing plays. The one where Parker Livingston gets blown up, and it could have been a better pass. It wasn't a terrible pass. It did hit him in both the hands. He should have caught it the first time, but that play took 4 seconds. We're lucky that didn't end up with another sack too, because you saw the little, it's like a mesh concept turn into a wheel. He had to stop for a second to sell it and then run up the sideline. That was like the first long developing play, and might have been the only one where it's like, oh, he actually had time to throw that football. And the average depth of target with the skill that we have is the highest of the Sark era. So we're running the longest routes down the field with the worst offensive line of the Sark era. It makes no sense. If Steve Sarkisian does not understand what he has at this point, guys, it could get super ugly if he just keeps banging his head in the wall and saying, no, we're going to force the ball deep. We're going to do this. There are some things he's going to absolutely have to change. I know he doesn't want to change it, but if you want to get the most out of this football team, you're going to have to go against some of your philosophies here, Steve. You're just going to have to do it.
I'm with you there.
Go ahead.
I'm with you, because I think, and though we talked about Arch holding on to the ball a couple of times. Those were those long developing plays where he had a guy and he double clutched it, or he held it for an extra second. And I think there are moments where Arch flashes that confidence, but I don't think he and I said it on Saturday as a joke, but it's like, it's hard to throw a deep ball when you got 10 other guys on your back, like offensively. Like, it's hard to find an open man. There were a couple of spots where Art should have let the ball fly, and he didn't, and it cost Texas. But like, some of that is just like, he's got to worry about hands in his face and the pocket collapsing because the guards can't hold up. Like, he's got too much stuff going on. So I'm with you there. It is inexcusable for the Texas offense to be this bad.
And if you're going to do that, then you need to have an immediate hot read that he knows right away. And we don't have that either. Like, he's not giving him an immediate answer underneath a lot of these deep routes. It's all deep routes. And it's like, okay, what do you want him to do here? He's either going to take a sack run or force an interception a lot of times, or force a big play. And you can't win football games like that. Like, I understand this offensive line's great. I'm completely on board with the style of offense you're trying to run, because guys were open down the field, and Arch Manning's good at throwing the deep ball. But guess what? It all starts with, can you protect long enough for that stuff to be able to happen? And the answer is unequivocally, no, you cannot do that. It's not even a question about it, guys. Like, you can't do it. And again, I would have loved to know in the offseason who it was. I don't know. Maybe Kyle Flood. Maybe he was like, no, we're good. We don't need any offense line. But if he had any doubt, if he's like, man, I don't know. I think we can, but we can't. Then that's on Sark. Like, as soon as he heard the doubt, he's like, okay, we're going in the portal. At the University of Texas, with the budget they have, there should be no doubts on the roster. You should know for a fact. Now, does it all have to be great? That's not what I'm saying. But it has to be at least average. And there are 2 spots on the offensive line that are significantly below average. And that's unacceptable, especially when you've invested the time and money that you have into Arch Manning. You've invested the time and money you have into Ryan Wingo. You've invested the time and money now with Jack Endries. Like, Jack Endries probably wasn't cheap coming over from Cal. He was one of the 2 to 3 best returning tight ends. And we're just completely wasting all of these guys.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think part of what we have to do, and I think there's got to be a reckoning there, is like, is Texas missing on it? Because we're coming out of an era where the offensive line coach was just kind of lazy. And that's something to be like I don't think Kyle Flood is lazy. He's never been accused of that. But like when Texas shows up into the season, they've got 2 offensive linemen that were top 400 recruits, and then the rest of them were somewhere in the range of like 350 and 400. Like that's not what the University of Texas should be trotting out there. And I'm not saying that you can't take developmental guys that you really like their tools, but I am saying like Texas should be able to field elite players at every position. And the simple fact of the matter is like Sark is a smart enough offensive coach. Kyle Flood has forgotten more about coaching offensive linemen than I will ever know. And like they should know that like this is a game that starts in the trenches. And I think Corey brings up a good point in the chat. I'm also like PK called a solid scheme, but they need to figure out how to get these edges loose, right? Texas came away no sacks in this game, 0 sacks in the game on Saturday. There was a point in the game where the only reason I knew Colin Simmons existed was because he got blown up and missed a tackle, right? That's the only reason. And then he finally had those 2 back-to-back plays on like 2nd and 3rd down where he like made the drive. But like early in the game, that's the only reason why I knew that Colin Simmons existed is because he got blown up on a play and missed a tackle, right? It's like that is inexcusable because Texas has Colin Simmons is probably going to be a top 15 pick just based on his measurables and his athletic frame, right? Ethan Burke is going to be a guy who's probably going to get drafted. Colton Vasek is a guy who's going to get drafted. You can't move Trey Moore out of the edge position and then have this production like stagnate. Like those things are things that the defensive staff has made choices on. And so that to me is inexcusable because again, Texas has elite talent at some of these spots and it's not getting it done. And then when they don't have elite talent, like what is the excuse for not going out and getting that level of talent?
No, I 100% agree. PK obviously does deserve some blame, but he's low down the totem pole. If you're naming those 4 guys, like it's these 3 in a bunch, and then he's down here because he's been super consistent. Oh, yeah. Like this is the first game and even first couple games of his career since, the first year or 2 where I've been like, he's been lights out. I can't really say anything about him. And I do think it would change a little bit if Manny Muhammad's in the game because I think you have that corner out there that you trust, so you might be able to, have some blitzes. But let's be honest here. Our corners were getting toasted one-on-one. If you bring blitzes, Dallas Wilson's eating even more, and I don't want that. Vernell Brown can also provide some problems. And then if you blitz and they do a run and you don't get Jaden Ball on the ground, that's an issue as well.
Sorry about you.
Yeah, so that's the thing. I understand why he didn't. I think he was just trying to be, keep us in the game as long as possible, and I thought he did a good job in the second half. But, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around here. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I really do think in the offseason you're going to see a heavy transfer portal class. I would be shocked if they don't take 2 to 3 offensive linemen. I would be shocked if they don't take a wide receiver or 2. I would be shocked if they don't take a running back because I don't think Sark is going to ever allow this to happen again. Because honestly, if it happens again, especially if it's back-to-back years with a Manning, I mean, that's going to destroy the legacy he has at Texas and probably destroy some dreams of him coaching in the NFL. So, for me, I would put the blame on Sark, number 1, Kyle Flood 2, Jeff Banks 3. They're all in the same basketball mode. It's like 1A, 1B, 1C for me.
Yeah. And I think Sark has not been shy about his, like when the roster is not what he needs it to be, they'll go out and flip it. You saw that between year 1 and year 2. Like they were like, hey, this is going to look completely different. And I think they flipped like 30 or so guys in the roster. So like Sark has not been afraid to do that. I think part of the reason why he felt comfortable doing that is because some of those guys weren't his guys. Those were Tom Herman guys. But ultimately, like if they're not getting it done, like I would hope that Steve Sarkisian, based on what we've seen from him, is not going to stand pat on this because he can't.
No, 100%.